Banister is our guest. Again, he'll be on tonight, first hour with Jason Burmis. I want to just have you roll whatever you think's important that people need to know about instead of me just throwing questions out in the time we have with you, Joe. And let's not have it be 10 years again until you're back in studio with us. Why are you in Texas? And then get into whatever subjects you'd like.
Attending a training class with my son Robert in the Dallas area. And, you know, I really love coming to Texas. I've got a lot of friends here. And I just thought, well, I don't know the geography that well. And I said, well, let's see, how far is Austin? 3 hours. You know what? Let's drive to Austin and see if we can say hi to Alex. And so
is that for front sight you're here in town?
No, I've been to 2 front sight trainings, and I try to wear this shirt in appropriate environments like like your show. And so this is what I was wearing when I came in earlier, the front sight.
No, I was just wondering why you mentioned it, because we just got contacted by the owner of Front Sight, and I'd heard from so many people that it really is a great training course, one of the best out there. You went through the Treasury Department training. Is it good?
Yes, I've been to 2 of the 4-day handgun courses for Front Sight. It's outside of Las Vegas in a town called Pahrump. A little bit of a drive, but it's really fantastic. I'd say the training is actually better than what I received with the Treasury Department. And, of course, my training was, 15 years ago. But excellent training. They treat you with a lot of respect. And I mean, my son Robert attended the class with me. He had handled a firearm a couple times, but I mean, by the end of those 4 days, he was an accomplished holster drawing shooter.
Well, that's the issue. I grew up with the kind of the frontiersman type training. I didn't know until I read history books later that 4-year-old set them in the lap with a .410 shotgun, teach them the danger. Then never let them touch the gun, just, make it an object of great power and admiration that I would get to when I was 5 or 6, start learning safety. First, they show you the power. You don't want to get near this in the toy. Then they teach you about it. Then they would take me out, really get on you, take it away if you did something wrong. Okay, we'll work on it tomorrow. Then the target, and by the time I was like 12, I was an incredible shot. I didn't realize everybody wasn't being given that training. How to breathe, how to squeeze, how to always point it at the ground, never point it at somebody unless you're going to shoot them. All those basics of shooting, how to, lead something, how to follow, then how to use a scope. As I got older, this was just normal, for me and people in the rural areas. So I always encourage folks that are getting into firearms to be sure that they do go out and take some training, because you will get in a lot of trouble if you don't have the training. Plus, it's almost useless if you don't have some basic training. But I'm going to shut up. Go ahead.
Well, as you're talking about, I mean, there's a culture that developed in our country, and even before our country was founded. And, of course, doesn't that dovetail with the Second Amendment? It doesn't say a militia. It says a well-regulated militia. And, of course, regulation deals with training, not with choking you with paperwork. Absolutely. It certainly does. You were telling me a story about your son during the break. Yeah, I have 2 sons. One just turned 21, Robert, who's with me. And Ryan, who wanted to be with us, is 17, almost 18. And a year or 2 ago, Ryan came to me, and he was learning things about the bigger world out there. And he said, "Dad, there's this guy. His name's Alex Jones, and I'm really learning a lot from him." He said, "Do you ever heard of him?" I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, Ryan, I have. He interviewed me back in 1999 when I left the IRS." And we don't talk all the time, but I'd say we're friends. And he said, "You're friends with Alex Jones?" So my sons, and I wouldn't say through any prodding that I've done. No,
that's got to be great that separately he got on the right path, and that's another testament to I better do a better job, because we really are reaching millions of people. That's what I keep trying to point out to the listeners. Is a lot of us just take for granted the millions you've been reaching, the millions I've been reaching. I mean, in those front page ads in USA Today, you reach millions alone. I mean, they tried to put you in prison for that. And I'm not trying to whine and say, support us. We're really in, trouble. I want folks to know we are doing this because we love liberty and freedom, because it's the right thing to do, but to also realize this isn't a game. The New World Order really is real.
Absolutely. And I think the thing is, Alex, that as you very well know, that now today we're reaching the mainstream much more than we ever have. 30, 40 years ago, the so-called tax protest movement was largely cloistered and incestuous, and so the government wasn't really worried about it. What they're worried about is us being able to enlighten people who otherwise would never know about this or question it.
And that's why they persecute people like yourself for free speech, because
Absolutely.
they want to have a chilling effect.
Back, as I said, that if they don't show an Irwin Schiff or a Joe Banister behind bars, then people question, well, wait a second, how can Joe Banister be saying what he's saying and still be walking to the grocery store and walking out there free? That won't register with people. So the government has to try to imprison us. And of course, as you've also probably learned, though, as difficult as it is to be attacked, a lot of times those attacks can turn into the most horrendous victories for all of us, because it really... No,
that's what I've learned. Every time somebody makes up some new horrible lie or tries to set me up, or all the things, the shenanigans, I don't spend a lot of time talking about it in the past, but now I realize it's starting to come to a head, so I'm kind of warning folks, stuff's getting crazy, that every time I just say, all right, God, I'm going to trust you and go through this, we get blessed after it happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, the blessings, they come veiled as things we may not recognize, but of course, God has a plan that has only somewhat been revealed to us, and we have to trust in Him, and that's, of course, been the strength that I've been able to draw upon. Of course, my friends, supporters, people like yourself, but ultimately Almighty God is always there for you. You just have to open up yourself to Him and realize that He'll protect you. Sometimes it may not look like protection to us, but again...
And occasionally, if you've really committed, and I'm not trying to be all high and mighty here, this is what I've learned and what I've, in history, if you fully committed to God and said, do whatever it takes, use me, sometimes God will let you be destroyed or killed, but that is going to water the tree of liberty, like Thomas Jefferson said. That will sometimes create the giant resistance or awakening. And I mean, maybe that's people's journey too, because I know I've told God whatever it takes.
Yes.
I mean, God's going to do what God's going to do anyways. But I've told God, if it means they destroy me and kill me or destroy my name, my treasure, my name, no matter what crap they make up, I am committed to this. And I think it's that attitude, that spirit of total commitment that the enemy is afraid of.
Absolutely. And Christians especially, I'm sure maybe other religions have, but Christians have the martyrs. If it weren't for martyrs in the early years of Christianity, Christianity wouldn't be here. And it's people, I'm sure, having to make that same kind of realization that, Lord, let your will be done. And if I'm meant to be killed or be tortured or to be prosecuted or persecuted or, bad things are said about me, each one of those things you have to offer up and just realize that there's a reason for it. And as long as you're obeying the commandments and that you are trying to do the right thing according to your conscience, you'll come out on the other side.
Well, that's the thing. I try to be a good moral person, and I am God-fearing, and I catch myself doing things. I mean, we really are a fallen species, but we also, can reach for the stars at the same time. I can't imagine just giving myself totally over to evil. I mean, that must be horrible.
I can't imagine it myself. We ask ourselves, how do they sleep at night? But then again, if they've totally given themselves over to evil, maybe it's not too difficult. But you or I, and I'm sure all the people I've met here in your crew, and so many people that I've met, they're the complete opposite, the complete antithesis of what the government told me they would be. The government said they're greedy, they just don't want to pay their taxes, they're just miscreants, they want to make trouble, and it's not like that.
Well, I've looked at most of the original patriots in the kind of the last wave, the last 50 years before us, kind of the G. Edward Griffins and Bob Chapmans at the tail end of that. Mainly they were military people and intelligence people who were let in on this stuff.
Right.
And a lot of them were like Red Beckman in the Air Force, all these guys, they saw this and they heard the UN's going to take over America and we're going to have a world government. And they said, and they saw the IRS shaking people down without due process, and they knew the Bill of Rights and Constitution. And they were saying, look, this isn't, this is a bunch of baloney.
Well, I think, I wouldn't mind putting out the word there to law enforcement and military, not to make you feel bad or to judge you, but, one of the things that I keyed in on was that we are not to bear false witness. And if you know something is a fact and you know that people's lives are at stake, a government's poisoning us or doing something, you may need to judge how you're going to exit or what you're going to do to make things better. But remember that it's wrong to bear false witness against your neighbor. And if you're helping these evil people, maybe you didn't know you were, but if you're a link in that chain, you need to think really hard about that, and you need to pray about it and see what your role may be.